Hey, how we doing? Today we're going to be learning about cues, questions, and advanced organizers as an instructional strategy. We're going to go through each individually, but overall they have the same goal, and that is to get students from point A, or wherever it is that they are currently in their knowledge, to point B, which not only is supposed to be on at a higher level of knowledge, but also at a higher level of thinking. So we'll learn to connect concepts to each other along the way. As we get started, we'll just go ahead and hopefully make this a little bit easier for everybody to see by putting it in an organizer and then talking about those towards the end. All right, so first we're going to talk about cues. Cues are set up to basically elicit a specific response or behavior out of students or whoever it is that we have that we're working with. So we're going to talk about strengths and weaknesses of cues, questions, and organizers. But as we get started with cues, things that you need to know about those are they can be verbal and they can be nonverbal. Verbal cues are, things as simple as words. Words that we say to signal things like, hey, get your paper out. We might just say, hey, or snap, or something to that effect. Nonverbal responses are probably, cues are probably more common than not. There's things like if you think back to when you were in elementary school and you stood in line, your teacher probably went like this at one point in time, and that signaled everybody in the line to do the same thing. So a cue that I use in my classroom is this up here. It says tech later. I either have, every day when my students come in, I have the word tech on the board, and it either says not today, now, or later. So that as soon as my students come in, they know that they either need to have their computer or iPad or whatever it is that they're working with out, or they need to have it put away. Either way, it's kind of one of those things. So some strengths of cues are that they help with classroom control. They also help with certain and appropriate behaviors that we want our students to exhibit. They also help the transition time. They help produce efficient, quicker times between trying to get from one point to another. In addition to that, they help us continue to maintain high expectations for every single learner because they're something that hopefully every single person can use. Now, a caveat to that is that if you use something like my tech example up here, and I have maybe a visually impaired student, I might have to assign someone to help them throughout the semester, just to let them know maybe what they're supposed to be doing, or maybe I'll just have to take that responsibility and say, hey, bud, make sure that you do or don't have your stuff out today. So weaknesses of those, they've got to be taught from the beginning, and they're not very interchangeable. They're also take a lot of time to establish sometimes, which requires a lot of patience on the instructor's part. They're not interchangeable because they might confuse students if they are. So, and then finally, with all three of these, they've got to be clear. So that's not so much a weakness as kind of something that we have to focus on as teachers. All right, we move right into questions. While cues are lesson-specific behaviors, questions are really there to stimulate the brain. They can be probably one of what I think are the biggest strengths of this, are that they can be used literally at any time throughout the lesson, or scenarios or whatever it is. That you're learning, you can always stop something and say, hey, let's clarify this, or hey, I have a question about this or that or the next. They inspire deeper thinking, and they connect students. They connect lessons, different lessons for the students. Other strengths are that they can for further application as well, and then they can also get students into the correct mindset. Sorry, that's not what I want to say right there. If you start a class off by asking questions, then you might be able to get them started in the right mindset from the very beginning. So the weaknesses for questions, though, like we already talked about earlier with cues, they need to be clear. Also, you need wait time. Some people might not see that as a weakness, but when you are on time crunch, I would see any kind of time where students, I can't say that when they're not doing something right because they should be thinking, but wait time can be a weakness. It can also be a strength when you're trying to get the students to come up with the answers, especially when you're trying to get them to come up with maybe different answers and maybe not kind of the usual. We talk about open-ended questions a lot, so they need time to really kind of create their own responses for that. In addition to that, this kind of goes along with clarity, but it's also a little bit higher level than that. There needs to be a balance of questions. And what I mean by that is simplicity and complexity of the questions. While they need to be clear, you don't just want simple close-ended questions all the time. Make sure that you are going ahead and asking those little bit deeper thought questions. Finally, advanced organizers. The goal of advanced organizers, they're basically just a new and graphic way to organize information. So we'll put organized info right there. Strengths about advanced organizers are that they connect a variety of students. I mean, you can hit a lot of students with these organizers because our brains all, while the patterns in our brains might work the same, some are stronger than others. So you can get a lot of students, a lot of different types of learners to learn with these various organizers. Another strength is that you can organize content in clear but streamlined formats. You can use colors, fonts, words, whatever, so that they remember things differently. They create additional thinking patterns. You can use these as an opportunity. any kind of way that you can get students to see something is a huge strength, honestly, because as we all see the world very differently, right? So as my student A over here looks at things visually, my student B over here likes to hear things, and I need to write them down. Whatever it is, I need to write them down. So a visual organizer has the ability to teach all three of those things. Though I may not be able to exactly let that student over here hear what it is that they need to hear, by using these organizers, I can let this student see it and read it to that one while I'm writing it down. Finally, they're just kind of like this last one, they're an additional tool for the students to visualize their information. However, there are weaknesses with them. They can be overused and they can lack in variety. There's tons of examples overused by the teacher. Which the activity for today will be to get on Pinterest and to go see different types of organizers that are out there. And this is usually by a teacher or instructor that the lack of variety actually happens. And then finally, they are super easy to overcomplicate. If you think about it, I try to keep this as simple as I could. This is a pretty simple table, but man, if you came in and you didn't follow this, hopefully anybody could look at this and figure out what we were talking about, but maybe not. Maybe I did overcomplicate this between the colors and the lines. I don't think so, but maybe I did. Examples of organizers, though, those are, anything and everything from a flow chart to a table, to any kind of bar or line graph or anything like that. And even things as simple as this. These are kind of like a concept map, but this one is extremely simple. But a lot of times in my classes, I will just use symbols to put up there. So if we're talking about, maybe issues in Africa and how that connects to the clothes we wear, because that's where a lot of our clothes come from. I might draw Africa and a line to a t-shirt and a line to the world and a line to a hammer to talk about, or not a hammer so much as a gavel, to talk about social justice and Supreme Court decisions in America that have been influenced by such social issues. So there's all kinds of ways to organize information for your students. Hopefully this gave you a pretty good idea. I'll go ahead and get a close-up of this for you in just a second. But the last thing I want to do, or I want you guys to do, I know this is taking up a little more time than we'd like it to, but I'd like you to hop on Pinterest and just search for whatever it is that you might teach later on and pull 3 different graphic organizers, or advanced organizers, I guess. They're all supposed to be graphic, so that you could potentially use in your classroom. And then I want you to explain what each one of them does and how it might help a different group of students. Make sure that there are different kinds of organizers. We don't want 3 tables like this, though they're easy for us to understand. Students can get bored with the same thing, which goes right back to our overuse and lack of variety. And at that point, you're really not helping too many students anymore. So, well, thanks for hanging with me with the lesson today. We'll go over next time, I guess, what we did.